In today's news, Premier Fahie weighs in on the COI. COI publishes the COI rules, the 2021 Red Cross Men's Health Expo recap with the one and only Director Stacey Lloyd. Entangled whale in Nanny Cay has been freed, thankfully, and we take a look at the impacts and consequences of COVID-19 on conservation in the British Virgin Islands, as well as UNICEF. Over 168 million children miss nearly a year of school, believe it or not. All this and so much more when 284 News returns. Welcome everybody. It's Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. I'm Ron Grant. A happy Wednesday to each and every one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good evening and a special good evening to each of our viewers across the region. Before we get into our newscast today, we take a look at some summary items. Of course, Customs says fake government checks, drugs imported through courier service. Premier confident, he says, that a battered marine sector will rebound, and he says extremely well. Now, reduced trade fees, not necessarily for young entrepreneurs. Now, 40 million in cocaine accused Hannah's estate dealer has been denied bail, and St. Vincent, the volcanic emissions could reach the BVI if winds shift. We're also looking at a very interesting story on the local scenes where the Honorable Alva Maduro-Keynes fires back at a ferry, that's operators for opposing government's approval on an additional ferry operator. Of course, this is of paramount concern to many persons. But before we get into those headlines, we begin on the local scene. Exercising his powers under Section 9 of the Commission of Inquiry Act, the Commissioner has yesterday, April 13, 2021, published the COI rules dealing with matters of evidence and procedure and two further protocols, one concerning applications for legal representation and the other two for witness expenses. Now, they can be found on the COI's website at bvi.public-inquiry.uk. Now, the Commission has a wide power to really determine the procedures by which the COI will conduct its work. Given the pandemic, it is important that the COI is able to work as flexible as possible. The rules published will, of course, assist those who may be involved in the COI, particularly relating to hearings. And, of course, the two further protocols give guidance as to the process by which the Commissioner will consider applications to be represented by counsel and claims, of course, for appropriate witness expenses, which include any fees and expenses incurred by a person in respect of legal representation or advice. Now, the Commissioner really continues to encourage anyone who believes that they have information that may assist in the inquiry, who has not already done so, to submit that to the COI. And that, again, is to submit that information directly to the COI as soon as possible via the secure website at bvi.public-inquiry.uk. Now, in a recent interview with our leader of government business, the Honorable Andrew A. Fahie, who's also the Minister of Finance, yesterday, March 13th, when questioned by myself on the COI and really his take on what has taken place, this is what our leader of government business had to say. Take a look.
All four parents have done well to build this country. We're continuing to build it. The negative entities, yes, we'll deal with them. The negative entities, yes, the law will deal with those. But I dare them, whoever opened their mouth with it, to show me a country that doesn't have a issue with drugs and have an issue with certain illegal activities that they have to be able to look about how to contain, or issues with illegal smuggling of persons. Every place has its issues, and we are no different. And we're going to continue to strengthen our weak areas and strengthen our strengths.
Honorable Premier, speaking of painting a negative picture, the Commission of Inquiry was announced on the 18th of January 2021 to look into whether or not corruption, abuse of office, or other serious dishonesties may have taken place amongst public, elected, and statutory officials in recent years. Now, the Commissioner, Sir Gary Hickerburn, was sworn in on the 22nd of January and began his work from that date. Since then, the COI team has been actively conducting their investigations, gathering information. The team has recently, of course, returned to the territory. As leader of government business, what is your take on the COI and as it pertains, just like we were talking about painting a negative picture, as it pertains to whether or not corruption, abuse of office, or other serious dishonesties may have taken place among public office or continues to do so, what do you think? When do you see persons painting this image that the BVI is somehow labeled as corrupt? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I want to state clearly to the people of the Virgin Islands, your government has done its best to make sure that they do whatever it has to do for you and your behalf above board. I want to make that abundantly clear. And I also want to state that we do support a transparent, independent Commission of Inquiry that will yield a just outcome. I know that I've stated before that we had no knowledge of the Commission of Inquiry by the former holder of the post as governor, and I will leave that there for now. And all I'll say to persons is that I pray to God that God Almighty would make sure that there's a just outcome, because when destruction is your motivation becomes your destruction. And I will say this, whether it is Commission of Inquiry or the constant negative connotation of this territory, all of it adds up to one thing, a very organized way of trying to paint the BVI as no good and the people of the BVI as no good. That is something that is alive from the pits of hell. And I pray to God that in His timing He deal with all of this, because some of the forces are greater than us here in the BVI, but they're not greater than God. And that's all I'll say on that for now.
Now, I must ask, regarding the COI, the government of the Virgin Islands secured legal services very early on in the stage, of course. Why was the legal representation sought so early? And as Minister of Finance, what is the cost of the services provided by the selected UK firm?
Well, we also need to know the cost of what it costs the UK to do the Commission of Inquiry on their end. And, but we will reveal the reason now, which we have said clearly. And the reason is to make sure that the person that is being accused, which is the government, ensures that we walk along for a transparent and independent inquiry. Because in the 21st century, everyone has some rights, especially under the UN Convention, and we have to protect our rights. Persons have a right to go in with a lawyer into the inquiry. The government has a right to monitor whatever information is requested and to make sure that it is in line according to the law. So it is not like in the olden days when an inquiry is called and person didn't recognize that they have rights. Everyone have their legal rights to make sure also that we secure the reputation of the BVI, and also to make sure the evidence that is being used is one that has been proven to be of a credible nature and reflects exactly what it is was being held by the government of the Virgin Islands in terms of information. And that's all I'll say about that for now, because it's an active, ongoing matter. And this one is obviously one that is being watched closely from many eyes. And even as I speak and answer, many of them will be watching, taking every word out of my mouth. So I would not respond any further than to say, Father God, who sit on high, continue to look after your children in the BVI and give us a just outcome.
Viewers, that was Leader of Government Business and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Andrew Fahie, speaking on the Commission of Inquiry. The United Nations has reported that more than 168 million school children globally missed out on learning in class as schools in some 14 countries remained largely shut for almost an entire year due to the coronavirus-related lockdowns. Now, the UN Children's Fund reported on Wednesday. They said, and I quote, "As we approach the one-year mark of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are again reminded of the catastrophic education emergency worldwide lockdowns have created." Henrietta Fore, UNICEF Executive Director, said in a news release announcing the agency's findings. She said, "With every day that goes by, children unable to access in-person schooling fall further and further behind, with the most marginalized paying the heaviest of price." Now, according to UNICEF, 9 of the 14 countries where schools remain closed mostly between March of 2020 and February of 2021 are in the Latin America and, of course, the Caribbean region, affecting nearly 1 million students. Of these countries, Panama kept schools closed for the most days, followed by El Salvador and Bangladesh and Bulgaria. Now, in addition, around 214 million children, 1 in 7 pupils globally, missed more than 3/4 of their in-person learning, while an additional 888 million continue to face disruptions in their education due to full and partial school closures, according to the UN data. Now, schools closure have been extremely devastating, as we, of course, know, to our economy and the livelihood, as well as the student education, of course, in the BVI community. And consequences for children's learning across the region continue to be of paramount importance, considering their well-being. The most vulnerable children and those unable to access remote learning are hit even harder, as they are at an increased risk of never possibly returning to classroom in some of the regions, sometimes forced into child labor, the UN says, and even child marriage, according to UNICEF. Now, school children globally also rely on their schools as a place to interact with peers, seek support, access health and immunization services, and, of course, a nutritious meal. The longer schools remain closed, the longer children are out and cut off from their critical elements of childhood and growing development, the agency added. Now, Executive Director Force really called on all nations to keep schools open or prioritize them in reopening plans where they are closed. She said, "We cannot afford to move into year 2 of limited or even no in-school learning for these children. No effort should be spared to keep schools close or prioritize them in reopening plans." Now, UNICEF also urged governments to focus on the unique needs of every student with, of course, comprehensive services covering remedial learning, health and nutrition, and mental health and protection measures in schools which really nurture children and, of course, of adolescents' development and their well-being. Now, recently, also on Wednesdays, UNICEF they unveiled that the pandemic classroom, which is now a new term that's being modeled, a model classroom made up of 168 empty desks, each desk representing 1 million of the children living in countries where schools have been almost entirely closed, as a solemn reminder of the classroom in every corner of the world that remain empty. Now, behind each empty chair, they are really solidifying, and they hang an empty backpack, a placeholder for a child's deferred potential. Now, after walking through the installation set up at UN headquarters in New York, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called the staggering number of children missing out on vulnerable education a tragedy. "We have millions of children," he said, "out of school, and that is a tragedy for them, a tragedy for their countries, a tragedy for the future of human mankind." Now, as it pertains to the state of education in the Virgin Islands, the reduction of schools and the social distancing protocols specifically by 50% has been confirmed by Premier Fahie and Leader of Government Business, now allowing for more students, of course, to be able to resume face-to-face sessions. Premier and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Andrew Fahie, made this disclosure during the COVID-19 update on April 8th. He said, and I quote, "With regards to schools, we have reduced the distancing in the classrooms from 6 feet to 3 feet to now allow most of our students to return to face-to-face instruction." Now, additionally, he noted that students will still have to, of course, observe all protocols, and this is in keeping with the advice of international and local health officials. When asked about the time frame for which this will take effect. Premier Fahie had this to say. Take a look. When exactly can educators, students, and parents expect to resume such sessions with the recent announcement?
Well, Minister of Education is working on that very furiously to have that done as soon as possible. I must state, though, that some schools were open, but based on the spacing and their size, as some classes were allowed to be in school, while there were some that were dealing with it online. And I understand the concerns of both educators, parents, and students. But I want persons to bear in mind, though, that this is not an issue that's local alone. This online learning as a result of COVID-19 has torn apart the entire world of concerns over education. So I like to research things before I speak on them, because I know that there has been a drive somehow to just blame the Minister of Education here in the BVI for not getting back into schools. But that is not something that he himself has brought onto the territory or to the world. That's something that all ministries of education throughout the world are grappling with. We have been able now to champion the cause to have it down to 3 feet. We were championing that cause before, but persons were saying that CDC and other health officials did not agree. Again, we were proactive, and now they have said 3 feet is accessible, is allowed. So the Minister of Education now and his team are working very furiously to make sure as much as possible that we have our students in school so that they can do the physical learning. There will still be some forms of blended learning that takes place in certain cases for some schools. But I must also state that I do strongly encourage, unless there's a health a deficiency, unless there's a medical reason or your human rights reason, I would still encourage as many of our teachers to be vaccinated. If you have concerns, the Minister of Education is also doing up a forum for teachers to make sure that they are educated more in it, their concerns are answered, and from the medical team, and also to have another extra drive to help to teachers in terms of being vaccinated, so we can help to ensure as much as humanly possible the safety of our teachers, or their support staff, the principals, and the students and parents, because we don't want to get a relapse of this and have to close back down. So I want to also plug that in there and say, yes, most schools are going to be open, but there's still going to be some blended learning. And the Minister of Education is coming out very soon with a more detailed speech, because he deals with this day to day. But I know this from our discussions of these areas as we have weekly.
Indeed. Viewers, that was the state of education in the British Virgin Islands. I know many persons, parents, students, teachers, and residents are really concerned, but I do think it's important that we realize that the state of education and the challenges are not only faced here in the BVI, but across the region, and just like the UN statistics say, all across the world. Now, still ahead, Director of the BVI Red Cross joins us live to recap the very successful 2021 Men's Health Expo. You don't want to miss it. All this and so much more when 284 News returns.
The win.
What in the hell?
I'm freaking out.
Is about these people.
It's always a pleasure coming to you live and direct from the
What's poppin'? What's really good?
Davis has won it for the
Viewers, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. You're watching 284 News out of Tortola in the beautiful British Virgin Islands. Joining us once again is Miss Stacey Lloyd of the BVI Red Cross, Director, that is, of the BVI Red Cross. Miss Lloyd, thank you so much for your time this evening, and welcome.
Thank you for having me, Ron.
Now, the 2020 Men's Health Expo was hailed as a huge success once again. Once again, we saw men of the Virgin Islands coming together to really take into account their health. I want to recap and really take some time to focus in on the really huge reception that we received this year. And of course, we are yet to know whether or not it's based on the COVID-19 protocols and exactly what we've been seeing with health scares. But when you reflect on the very successful, the numbers have shown to increase. What did we again see this year?
Well, this year, what we saw was that the men wanted to have the men's health fair / prostate screening. The participation was amazing throughout the entire fair. We collaborated with other NGOs such as BVI Diabetes Association, Alzheimer's Association, BVI Cancer Society, the Breast Cancer Awareness Club, Green VI. And so all these NGOs were on board providing health information, and the information was well received throughout the men. As you're aware, the fair initially was held on Virgin Gorda on March 27th, and that was phenomenal. The fair prior to that, we had a total of 83 men tested. This year, we had 123 participants, so the increase was definitely there. Again, the men wanted it. They were very engaging. They were receptive to the information that was being shared. On Tortola, the fair was held at Cedar School on April 9th and 10th. And we had a total of 467 participants. And the number for Tortola was slightly down, but the overall number of the fair, when you include Virgin Gorda, was 580. So it's an increase in the amount of total participants. Again, we saw the participation from the NGO community, and we were happy to have different genres, different demographics come to the fair, which was very interesting for me. We saw mid-30s to as old as 60, 70, 80-year-old men participate in the fair. So overall, the fair was a total success.
And when we recap, what do you attribute as director to the increase in numbers? Anything specific so far?
Just when I was walking around talking to the men and trying to find out, well, what is it about our men's health fair that attract you, especially the first-time persons who attend the fair? For some of them, they're not working. And so this was an opportunity for them to have a checkup of this magnitude for free. And so they saw it as an opportunity, and they took that opportunity. There are usual participants who have come every year that they can. And then I think from our end, we did a very good marketing approach. As you're aware, we partner with Nagico Insurances.
Of course.
And so we were able to really get the word out. And I think that was one of the reasons why the participants had increased this year.
Now, this event, Ms. Lloyd, could not have been successful without the contribution of many persons. You mentioned additional nonprofit organizations, and of course, one of the major sponsors, Nagico. Were there any other sponsors that contributed to the success of this event?
Yes, like you said, Nagico was our main sponsor, actually our partners in this event. And it was such an amazing time working with Nagico because they actually rolled their sleeve up and they were actually at the fair doing the different checks, checking glucose, blood pressure, pulling blood for the PSA. So they were just amazing in the entire process they were involved. We have sponsorship from Republic Bank, National Bank of the Virgin Islands, O'Neill Webster, Top Priority Security, Campbell's. Cedar School was phenomenal in just giving us the school so that we could be able to have the fair and adhere to social distancing and COVID protocols. So they were amazing. Hunt & Co. and Lesmore Smith of Top Priority Security. Without these partners, we would not have been able to have this fair this year, and I really want to just thank them so much.
Wonderful. Now, we are, of course, in the era of the global pandemic that is COVID-19, and I understand the Men's Health Expo was able to capitalize on that, and we saw some level of testing of COVID-19, the administering, rather, of the vaccine. Is that correct?
Correct. The BVI HSA was on site on Saturday, April 10th, to administer the vaccine to participants, not just men. It was an opportunity for anybody to come in and say, I want to take the COVID-19 vaccine. And they were on site. They were amazing. They had education. They were speaking with the different participants about the advantages of getting vaccine. And of course, it gave persons an opportunity to ask the healthcare practitioners any questions that they may have had about the vaccine to clear up any misconception. So that partnership was amazing. It was well received. And again, I just want to thank the BVI HSA for partnering with us to have the vaccine available at the fair.
Wonderful. Now, as we look at men's health holistically, what exactly should men be paying more attention to as we continue to traverse? As we know, we're not the most prone to wanting to go to the doctor, and unlike the health fairs that the BVI Red Cross puts on annually, what exactly should we be paying more attention to as it pertains to our health? What would you suggest?
Definitely your diet, your nutrition. You need to be very, very conscious of what you're putting into your bodies. Exercise, we cannot emphasize that enough. If you can be as mobile and as active as you can, that is the way to go. We definitely want you to focus on your mental health, because your mental health plays a very big part of your overall health system. So if you're feeling stressed, anxious, men, don't be too macho, don't be too strong to want to go and speak with a professional. I definitely would recommend that they spend more time with their family, spend more time doing things that you love and you enjoy. Have a relationship with your healthcare practitioner. Make a checkup part of your every year to-do list. Always have that conversation. Make sure you go out, check your blood pressure, your glucose level, cholesterol.
Yes.
Stay on top of that and try to find ways that could mitigate you having elevated blood pressures or glucose or high cholesterol. Definitely just encompass everything.
Indeed, and I appreciate that very so much. Now, Ms. Lloyd, the BVI Red Cross continues to do remarkable work for not only persons who want to get in contact with the BVI Red Cross for personal matters, but for persons who might be interested in volunteering. I know you guys offer a plethora of services. How can persons in the community wishing to get in contact with you for a variety of reasons, how can they do that?
Well, several ways. They can come to our office in Johns Hole. It's right by the stoplight. We're open Monday through Friday. Come to the office and you can ask for a volunteer application form, or you can email us at info@redcross.vg. Again, that's info.redcross.vg, or you can call us at 494-6349 and let us know that you're willing to be a volunteer with the BVI Red Cross, and we can email that application to you.
All
We
right,
also
Ms.
have our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter page, and it's BVI Red Cross.
Wonderful. Ms. Lloyd, thank you so much for your time. And viewers, you heard it here first from the director herself. Not only another successful Men's Health Expo, but also the avenue for men and persons in the community who want to stay on top of their health as well as volunteer and stay in touch with the community. The BVI Red Cross continues to serve as that avenue and continue to help you to stay connected. Of course, we here at 284 Media have been considering and contributing in our various ways. We have a number of interviews that you could stay tuned, of course, to our station to get in contact with. Of course, the State of the Territory interview with the Honorable Premier Leader of Government Business and Minister of Finance, where we spend an in-depth amount of time really tackling a number of issues that are plaguing the BVI community, from lives to livelihood. Of course, my colleague Jovan Wilson sat down with the Rotary Club branches of Tortola today to really encompass the BVI's contribution, particularly through Rotary, that of course as it pertains to the residents of St. Vincent and the Grenadines and our contribution here in the British Virgin Islands. They are having a telethon, which you want to hear all about. So if you, in case you miss both of those interviews, of course, also the one and only Daylon Vanterpool of the Virgin Islands is launching or has launched a financial literacy book. You definitely want to tune into those interviews and recap and catch up. We have a lot of talented Virgin Islanders that are making their mark not only in the BVI but across the region, and we take pride in making sure that you are informed. We thank you so much for your time today. Do have a pleasant rest of the day. Of course, be sure to tune into our network both on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as our website at 284media.com. We're always happy to bring you the latest happenings both locally, regionally, and internationally. I'm Ron Grant. Do have a good rest of the day. A happy Wednesday to each and every one of you. Bye-bye.